We're finally doing this. Welcome, everyone, to the Natural English Talk podcast. I'm James, and I'm joined by the one and only Anna. Honestly, I actually spent like 2 hours this morning just staring at the mic thinking, man, what are we even doing? You know, it's like that feeling when you're about to jump into a cold lake. You just gotta do it.
Yeah, totally. You're such a procrastinator, James. But hey, we're here. Welcome, guys. It's not going to be your typical repeat after me kind of thing. We're just going to talk like we always do.
Right, exactly. No scripts, well, mostly no scripts, and no boring grammar stuff. And look, before we even get into the meat of it, I gotta say, if you're listening to this and you're like, wait, what did he just say? Or they're talking too fast. Dude, relax, seriously. Take a breath. You don't need to catch every single syllable. It's like when you're watching a movie, right? You don't need to know every word to know that the hero's about to get punched. Just let the sound wash over you. If you get 40%, 50%, that's a win. Don't stress the small stuff. Just keep your ears open and vibe with us.
For sure. That's so important. I mean, people get so hung up on the details that they miss the actual, the soul of the conversation. It's about the flow, right? So yeah, just lean back, do your dishes, walk your dog, whatever. Don't worry about the dictionary. Anyway, James, you were telling me earlier about how you actually started listening to stuff in other languages, and it totally changed your perspective on this.
Oh, man, yeah. I've been messing around with some Portuguese lately, right? And I used to sit there with a notebook like a total nerd trying to write down every verb, and honestly, it was exhausting. I hated it. I wouldn't have lasted a week if I kept doing that. But then I started listening to these random Brazilian surf podcasts. Don't ask me why, I don't even surf. And at first, it was just noise, like total white noise. But after I don't know, 3 weeks, suddenly words started popping out. It was like that scene in The Matrix where the code starts turning into shapes. It's wild how the brain just figures it out if you give it enough raw data.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's like your brain is a pattern recognition machine. But I think some people struggle with that because they feel like if they aren't studying, they aren't learning. Which is, it's kind of a trap, don't you think? Like, you're so focused on the rules that you forget how to actually, communicate.
Exactly. It's the classroom trauma, right? We're so used to being graded. But here, no grades, just talk. And that's actually what we're diving into today. How this whole podcast thing, just listening to us ramble, is probably the best thing you can do for your brain. So, going back to what I was saying about that surf podcast, there was this one guy, right? He had this super thick accent. Sounded like he had a mouthful of marbles, honestly. And I remember thinking, I'm never going to get this. But the weird thing is, after a while, I didn't need to understand the words to understand his vibe. You know what I mean? I knew when he was stoked about a wave or when he was annoyed at some tourist. And I think that's what people miss when they're burying their heads in a textbook. They're missing the human element, the music of the language, if that makes sense.
The music of the language. Okay, getting a bit poetic there, aren't you? But no, you're totally right. It's funny because I was reading this article, or maybe it was a video, I don't know, but it was talking about how kids learn. They don't they wouldn't have ever learned to talk if their parents just handed them a list of irregular verbs and said, "Hey kid, memorize this before you can have a cookie." They just hear cookie 1,000 times in different contexts until their brain goes, "Oh, okay, that round delicious thing? That's a cookie." It's all about context, right?
Yeah, for sure. But see, that's the thing. Adults, we're so stuck in our ways. We want the shortcut. We want the 5 tips to fluency or whatever. And I'm like, man, there is no shortcut. It's just hours of just being in it. I remember when I first moved to the city, I just sit on the subway and eavesdrop on people. Not in a creepy way. Okay, maybe a little creepy. But I'd listen to how they'd like cut off their words. Nobody says, I am going to go to the store. They're like, I'm going to hit the store. You need anything?
Oh, yeah, the Subway School of Linguistics. I love it. But it's true, though. Like, I catch myself doing it all the time. I'll say something like, I shouldn't have done that. And if you asked me to write it down, I'd have to actually stop and think about the grammar. But in the moment, it just flows. And that's what's so hard about podcasts for learners, right? Because we speak so fast and we use all these like weird fillers. But honestly, that's the real English. The clean version in the textbooks, that's like a plastic fruit. It looks okay, but it doesn't taste like anything.
Plastic fruit. That's a good one. I'm going to steal that. But yeah, if you only listen to the slow, perfect stuff, the second you step off a plane in New York or London, you're going to be toast. You're going to be standing there like, wait, did that guy just speak English or was that Elvish? Because real life is messy. It's fast, people interrupt, they change their minds mid-sentence. It's a mess, but it's a beautiful mess, you know?
It really is. And I think that's why this format works because we aren't trying to be perfect. Like I just realized I've used the word like about 50 times in the last 2 minutes. And normally my English teacher from high school would be screaming, but in a real conversation, it's a placeholder. It gives your brain a microsecond to catch up. And for a listener, those little gaps, those ums and likes, they actually give their brain a second to process what just happened, too.
You know, it's funny you mentioned the plastic fruit thing, Anna, because it reminds me of, okay, so back in college, I had this roommate from Italy, cool guy, Marco, and he'd been studying English for like 10 years, right? He knew all the rules. He could probably explain I don't know, the future perfect continuous better than I ever could. But the first time we went out to a loud bar with a bunch of friends, dude he was a deer in headlights. He couldn't follow a single joke.
Yeah, for sure. It's the background noise, the slang. It's a totally different beast. I mean, it's one thing to understand a clear recording in a quiet room, but the real world has like sirens and people talking over each other and half-finished thoughts.
Exactly. And he was so frustrated. He was like, James, why didn't they teach me how to say my bad or I'm down? And I told him, I was like, man, you got to stop reading and start like drowning. I call it the deep end theory. You just got to throw yourself into the deep end of the pool. At first, you're splashing around, you're panicking, you think you're going to sink, but eventually your body, or in this case your brain, it figures out how to tread water. It's a survival thing, you know?
Drowning might be a bit of a scary metaphor for the listeners, James, but I get it. I mean, I think there's science behind that. Your brain is kind of lazy, right? If it can get away with not working, it will. So if you give something easy, it just stays in first gear. But when you listen to a podcast like this, where we're talking at a natural pace, we're using idioms like hit the road or bite the bullet without stopping to explain them, your brain has to like kick into high gear to keep up. It's like a workout.
Totally. It's a gym for your ears. And look, I'll be the first to admit, I'm a rambler. I'll start a story about my dog and end up talking about, I don't know, the price of avocados in 2012. My brain it jumps. And for someone trying to learn English, that's actually a good thing, because that's how people actually talk. We're not robots. We don't have a linear path. We loop back. We forget what we were saying. We say, wait, what was I saying? I say that at least 10 times a day.
At least. But see, that's the thing. When you hear you do that, it actually makes the listener more comfortable, I think, because they realize, oh, wait, even the native speaker is getting lost in his own sentence. It takes the pressure off. Like, you don't have to be perfect because we aren't even perfect. And honestly, I'd have been so much more relaxed learning Spanish if I'd realized that native speakers mess up their own language all the time. We stumble, we use the wrong word, we and through half our lives.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I'm the king of the false start. I'll start a sentence like, I think I actually, never mind. And if you're a listener, you might think you missed something important, but you didn't. It's just the gears turning. So if you're listening and you feel lost, good. That means you're in the deep end. Just keep swimming, man. Just keep swimming. But okay, so check this out. There's this other side to it, right? Everyone's always talking about active study, like you're supposed to be sitting there with a highlighter and a desk lamp. But I'm a huge fan of just background noise, like having the podcast on while you're making an omelet or, I don't know, scrubbing the shower. My girlfriend, she's actually learning Japanese right now, and she's obsessed. She has these reality shows on in the background 24/7. And I was like, babe, you aren't even looking at the screen.
Yeah, my mom does the same thing with her French podcasts. It's like a safety blanket. But wait, do you actually think that works? Like, if you aren't paying attention, is anything actually, sticking? Or is it just noise?
No, seriously, because okay, so I actually read this thing. I think it was a study or something. Don't quote me on it, but it said that your subconscious is way smarter than you think. Even if you're focused on like not burning your toast, your brain is still picking up on the rhythm. It's getting used to the way we link words together, like how we don't say what is up, we say what's up or sup. If you only hear that when you're studying, it feels like a chore. But if you hear it while you're relaxing, your brain it absorbs it like a sponge.
Yeah, I get that. It's like training your ears to recognize the melody before you even understand the lyrics. But I think the problem is that people's egos get in the way. Like they feel guilty. They think, if I don't understand 100%, I'm wasting my time. And they get frustrated and turn it off. I've done that. I've turned off podcasts in Spanish because I felt, I don't know, stupid, like I was failing a test that wasn't even happening.
Yes, that right there. That's the ego trap. You got to kill your ego, man. You're not failing a podcast. That's not a thing. It's input. I tell people all the time, it's like going to the gym and being mad that you can't lift 300 pounds on your first day. Like, chill. You're just there to move your muscles. The weight doesn't matter yet.
Totally. And honestly, some of the best stuff you learn is the stuff you didn't even try to learn. Like, I'll be talking and I'll use a phrase like, at the end of the day, or to be honest. And I realized I didn't learn those from a book. I just heard people say them so many times that they just became part of my DNA. It's weird how that happens. You don't even realize you're doing it until you're like halfway through a sentence and you're like, oh, wait, I just said that perfectly.
Right. It's like magic, but it's not magic. It's just consistency. I'd have given anything to have someone tell me that years ago. Just keep the noise going. Don't worry if you're drifting in and out. If you catch a joke, awesome. If you only catch a yeah, also awesome. You're still ahead of the guy who didn't even press play. You know, speaking of perfect English, I saw this video the other day of a guy. He was like an AI or something, or maybe just a really stiff teacher. And he was saying, it is imperative that you enunciate every consonant. And I was just like, dude, who talks like that? If I went to a party and said, I would have liked to have been invited, people would look at me like I'm an alien or something. We say, I'd have liked to be invited, right? It squishes together.
Oh my God, totally. I'd have. That's like a triple contraction. It's a mess. But that's the gold, right? That's what makes someone sound like a person and not a translation app. But it's scary for listeners because when we squish everything, like gonna, wanna, or shoulda, it sounds like one long blurry word. I remember my friend from Japan, she used to think, what are you gonna do, was just one really long verb.
Honestly, it might as well be. But see, that's where the slang comes in too. People get so terrified of slang because they think it's bad English. But slang it's the seasoning. Without it, the conversation it's just dry chicken. You need that I'm down, no worries, or that's wild. Like I use the word wild for everything. If I see a cool sunset, That's wild. If I get a parking ticket, that's wild. It's a versatile tool, man.
It is. And I actually think it's easier to remember those phrases because they have like an emotion attached to them. When you hear us get excited and say, no way, or for sure, your brain hooks onto that feeling. It's way more memorable than, I don't know, I am in agreement with your previous statement. Like, barf. Nobody says that.
I am in agreement. Yeah, okay, Professor. But hey, it's not just about the words. It's about the confidence to be wrong. I think that's the biggest hurdle. People are so afraid to use slang because they're afraid they'll use it wrong. And I'm like, so what? I use slang wrong all the time. I'll try to say something hip that my younger cousins are saying, and they just roast me for it. They're like, James, stop, you're 30. You can't say that.
Yeah, you definitely shouldn't try to be hip, James. It's a bad look. But no, you're right. It's about the attempt. Like, if a non-native speaker uses an idiom, even if it's a tiny bit off, I'm usually just impressed that they're playing the game, you know? They're in the arena. They're not just standing on the sidelines with their grammar book.
Exactly. It's like sports. You're going to drop the ball, you're going to trip over your own feet, but that's how you get better. You don't get better by watching from the bleachers. You got to get your jersey dirty. And listening to us, it's like watching the game from the front row. You're seeing the sweat, the mistakes, the messy reality of it all. And hopefully it makes you realize that you don't have to be perfect to be understood. So, I guess what we're really saying is it's a marathon, not a sprint. I hate that cliche, I really do, but it's just true. You can't force your brain to just get it overnight. It's like, have you ever been trying to remember the name of a movie and you're stressing out and it's on the tip of your tongue, but it just won't come? And then 2 hours later when you're, I don't know, brushing your teeth, it just pops into your head? Oh, Inception.
Yes, every single day. It's like your brain was working on it in the background while you were busy doing other stuff. And language is exactly like that. You'll be listening to us for weeks, feeling like you're just swimming in fog. And then one day you'll be walking down the street and you'll hear a random person say something in English and you'll just get it. No translating in your head, no, okay, that was the past tense of, none of that. It just clicks.
That click moment. Dude, that is the best feeling in the world. It's like a superpower. But you only get there if you don't quit when it's hard. I think a lot of people, they listen to one episode of a podcast, they realize they only understood 20%, and they're like, well, I guess I'm just not a language person. And I'm like, no, man, you're in the messy middle. That's where the growth happens. If it were easy, everyone would speak 10 languages, right?
Totally. And honestly, I think our listeners are already ahead of the curve just by being here. Like, they're choosing the messy way. They're choosing the authentic stuff over the boring, sterilized classroom stuff. And that takes guts, you know? It's much easier to feel safe with a list of vocabulary than it is to just listen to two friends ramble about avocados and the Matrix.
Hey, avocados are important. But yeah, you're right. It's about building that tolerance for ambiguity. That's a fancy way of saying being okay with not knowing what's going on. If you can get comfortable with being a little bit lost, you've already won the game. Anyway, I think we've talked their ears off enough for one day.
Yeah, for sure. We should probably let them get back to their lives. But hey, guys, seriously, thanks for hanging out with us in the deep end today. We're going to be back with more of this, whatever this is.
A beautiful mess, remember? That's what we called it. So yeah, keep those ears open, don't sweat the details, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.
Bye, guys. See ya.